Tonight, we're going back to Venezuela. I initially wanted to stay away from this, the Venezuela thing. We did a stream. It was called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Venezuela. Venezuela is one of these weird countries where I stay out of it. There are so many blob ops in Venezuela. Venezuela is like completely bipartisan blob ops. Like, one of the reasons we're having a difficult time trying to get the National Endowment for Democracy shut down is because they're so active in Venezuela and both parties agree on regime change in Venezuela. It's right next door to us. It's got infinity oil. It is the land of plenty. We had it under control until 1998. It is like the Iran, like a couple 100 miles from Miami. It's right there. And if we get it, we get so much that it's not, and I have so many other fish to fry that I just look at the Venezuela thing and I go, all right, CIA's doing shit in Venezuela. Is like, there's so many allies that I have who are invested in that. So I just don't talk about it much. It's not something like Ukraine where it's like a $300 billion investment and like the whole geopolitical Earth axis tilts on it. So I've only really talked about it in that like stream or two we did on, the funny thing happened on the way to Venezuela. And I talked about all the dynamics with Elon, with Trump, with the Trump base, with the bipartisan stuff. So I won't rehash that all here. But the reason that I wanted to, on the limited brain power that I have tonight, do this Venezuela thing is because Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone dropped a new video that I think is deceptively important for understanding the structure of blob ops. This is about an hour video, and I just want to listen to this tonight and annotate alongside with you guys, because I think the story that will unfold over this video is one that will help explain the structure of blob ops globally. It will help explain the nature of the relationship between the U.S. government, the donor drafter class, the NGOs, and private paramilitary groups, and that same structure everywhere around the world. And there are many things happening around Venezuela right now that are interesting to tee off on independently. So I think what I'm going to start with is a couple of things to note. So if you remember, everyone wanted Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So if you remember, the Nobel Peace Prize this year was won by Maria Corina Machado. Nobel Peace Prize. A glowing review by the New York Times. And you'll notice this is kind of the only time that the New York Times will praise someone that Donald Trump is praising. Maria Corina Machado actually dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, if you remember. Anyway, so she dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize. This is the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. A Nobel Peace Prize brings hope and scrutiny to democratic struggle, right? Okay, so we've talked about Maria Corina Machado before in the context of this network dating back to the early 1980s, really, around Iran-Contra. Elliot Abrams was the big Venezuela guy under Trump 1. Elliot Abrams. He was appointed by Mike Pompeo as special representative for Venezuela. Elliot Abrams. So he was the special representative for the State Department for Venezuela. He was in foreign policy under Reagan, Bush, and Trump. Council on Foreign Relations. His involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal under Reagan in the 1980s led to his conviction in 1991 on 2 counts of unlawfully withholding information from Congress. Boy, bring that back. Can you imagine someone today being criminally charged for unlawfully withholding information from Congress? When's the last time unlawfully? I mean, maybe you could argue, is that kind of like, you know, when they said Steve Bannon defied a subpoena? But you don't see that very often. Anyway, he was arrested during Iran-Contra, and then under Trump 1, ran our whole Venezuela policy. But Maria Corina Machado was also at the same Yale World's Fellow program that Alexei Navalny from Russia was at. And I believe she's also at Florida International University. Yeah. Maria Corina Machado, she's at their like democracy program at FIU, which is, you know, a major CIA recruiting center. Juan Guaido is there. We're going to be talking more about Juan Guaido in a second here. But this is not to say, like, I'm staying out of it. I'm not saying that's good, bad, ugly. It is what it is. And of course, the dean of FIU, the dean of its law school, was Alex Acosta, who was the prosecutor who gave the sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's a tangled web. Oh, this is the other thing that was funny that came out this week on Venezuela. Did you guys see this headline? I thought this was hysterical. Trump admin authorizes CIA covert action in Venezuela. I love this headline so much. Could we be so kind as to announce to the world when we are authorizing CIA covert action in every country? Have you ever seen a headline like this? Be real. Have you ever seen a headline that straight up says, we are authorizing CIA covert action? In chat, let me know. Have you ever seen this headline about any country anywhere? Kind of not covert anymore if you're announcing in the New York Times that you're authorizing covert action. I just love it, right? Because, like, this is called the presidential finding. I've talked about this a lot of times in the context of USAID, right? One of the reasons that USAID is the main funnel for covert action is because you don't need written authorization of covert action like you do with the CIA. Every covert action has to be authorized by the President of the United States. After the Church Committee hearing, after the Church Committee reforms of the late 1970s, in order to stop presidents from being able to do CIA action, but then say, oh, I didn't know about it, there became a legal requirement for something called a presidential finding. That's, I'll just show you guys, presidential finding. A presidential finding is a presidential directive required by statute to be delivered to certain congressional committees, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, to justify the commencement of covert operations by the CIA. Okay, so this is but normally it just goes to so like, for example, Joe Biden was privy to all of these CIA covert actions for 40 years before he was the vice president under Obama, because he was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which gets access to presidential findings. So it's, again, this Biden CIA family. And same with Kamala Harris when she was in the Senate and moved over to the Senate and was quickly put on the Senate Intelligence Committee. But it's not normally announced in the New York Times, the presidential finding. So that happened this week. At the same time, we're doing some pretty unprecedented stuff, like we are blowing up Venezuelan drug dealers. This, to my knowledge, has never been done before. So there's a lot going on in Venezuela. But we're going to go back to a time, and this is also another reason why USAID has so many Republican backers, is because of USAID's involvement in Venezuela. Crypto is big in Venezuela right now. You know, when I talk about why I'm long, you know, why my whole bullish on bullshit thing, when I talk, like, if you look at like Circle partnership, stablecoin Venezuela, Circle partners with Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, an AirTM to deliver aid to Venezuelans circumventing the Venezuelan state banking system. So through a collaboration with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, led by President-elect Juan Guaido, this was the CIA-backed opposition candidate in Venezuela under Trump 1, who got the bipartisan, standing ovation, even when Trump didn't at the State of the Union. And coordination with the U.S. government, we were able to put in place an aid disbursement pipeline that leveraged the power of the crypto stablecoin Circle to bypass the financial controls imposed by Maduro, the head of state in Venezuela, over the domestic financial system and put millions of dollars of funds into the hands of people fighting the opposition. So essentially, crypto is being used by the CIA and USAID to fund the Venezuelan opposition in a way that the Maduro Venezuelan government can't stop because it's not going through Venezuelan banks. This is why I say this is what the real use case of crypto is. It's not people buying bananas with Bitcoin. It's the CIA using it to bypass. Like it's kind of like my Bitcoin 2024 speech last year. Where I said, listen, you guys are going to get rich, or you've already gotten rich, but not for the reasons you probably. This is not like some plucky libertarian underdog story. Like, you are not using crypto to bypass the banks. The CIA is using crypto to bypass the banks. This is not like crypto is not cutting out the banking middleman. It's not like cutting out the state. It's the state using crypto to bypass other states. And when you look at the entirety of the remittances and like USAID that runs through this, it's just a gobsmacking amount. It's the volume of the market. So anyway, let's turn, just kind of level setting. Now, this is Al Jazeera. There are a million videos I could have picked for this, but this is a short one. This is Al Jazeera, which is Qatar, and usually very critical of U.S. foreign policy. I'm just going to play a little bit from this, and then we'll get into the substance.
Exactly is the U.S. up to in Venezuela? A New York Times report from 2018 claims that the Trump administration held secret meetings in 2017 with Venezuelan military officers to discuss their plans to overthrow President Nicolas Maduro. That would not have been the first time a U.S. administration has meddled in Venezuela's affairs. In fact, U.S. involvement in Venezuela dates back decades.
Well, it's not new. As the history record proves, the U.S. has sought regime change in Venezuela since the election of Hugo Chavez.
This has been going on a long time. I think the main difference is that the Trump administration is much more aggressive about it and open about it.
But you can't talk about U.S. intervention in Venezuela or even Latin America without mentioning a nearly 200-year-old policy called the Monroe Doctrine.
To put it simply, it basically declared that the United States had a kind of supremacy in this hemisphere.
Originally designed to block European powers claiming colonies in Latin America, the Monroe Doctrine was later interpreted to mean the U.S. also claimed the right to overrule the democratic process on the continent through invasions, coups, and CIA covert operations.
The United States is an empire, and so if you're an empire, you want as many countries as possible to line up with you. And so the pawns matter as well in a chess game.
In 2013, Secretary of State John Kerry announced the end of the Monroe Doctrine.
Many years ago, the United States dictated a policy that defined the hemisphere for many years after. We've moved past that era.
But how true is that statement?
It never ended. In terms of foreign policy, there is very little difference between liberal Democrats.
All right. Actually, you guys probably know this video. So basically in 1998, Hugo Chavez takes power, and it kicks off this era of us trying to regime change Venezuela. And things come to a head during the first Trump admin with Juan Guaido. By the way, tomorrow, Grokpedia goes online. Elon is soft launching a buggy version of his own Wikipedia, Grokpedia, tomorrow, which is going to be potentially game changing as like a level set, new Wikipedia. So Juan Guaido lost the vote in Venezuela, but the U.S. declared him the president anyway. So it's kind of interesting that, this is what the Wikipedia says. He never held power. And yet Wikipedia still refers to him as the president of Venezuela. For 4 years. That's so funny. Okay. So what I want to get to is a particular thing called the Bay of Piglets. Let me see if I can. Bay of Piglets, Venezuela. So you guys may be, okay, a bizarre plot to capture. This is how the BBC presented this. This is a July 2020 BBC reporting. So you guys know the Bay of Pigs. That was the big 1961 disaster that created this big schism between JFK and the CIA over Cuba. This was a Rolando Masfer type plot. If you guys remember, during our JFK files, we went over the case of Rolando Masfer, who was a CIA-backed Cuban mercenary who tried to take over a portion using his own hundreds of mercenaries boarding ships to militarily conquer parts of Haiti in order to use that as a launching point against Cuba. And they had backing from the CIA, but opposition from the State Department. And the State Department ended up organizing the arrest of them, and the CIA pressed the Justice Department to drop the charges. The decision by the Justice Department to seek a grand jury indictment against Rolando Masfer and certain of his associates is a potentially explosive matter, which could result in extensive damage to CIA activities in Miami. So this drug dealer and private mercenary on CIA payroll goes and is a hothead and tries to invade Haiti on his own with a group of a couple hundred of his thug friends, fails, and the Justice Department indicts him, and the CIA steps in and says, wait, Justice Department, back off. He belongs to intelligence. Does that sound familiar? Any bells ringing? And then 5 months later, during the past year, we have spent a good deal of time working with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney in Miami on possible problems in connection with the trial of our asset, Rolando Masfer. It's the same thing. It's the same friggin' jurisdiction. The defense has only to obtain testimony from one of the defendants or summon as defense witnesses one or more disaffected former agents of the CIA station in order to begin a chain reaction, surfacing much detail concerning CIA operations. States' strong desire for prosecution of this particular group prevailed over our worries. I want you to just read this. Justice is blind, right? Whether or not someone is prosecuted is not about whether or not they committed a crime. It's about whether the State Department or the Central Intelligence Agency wins. So this is like a big turf war and foreign policy dispute between the CIA and the State Department in the 1960s over Cuba policy. But this is a common thing. This is kind of the story of United Fruit using Bay of Pigs style private mercenaries to conquer parts of Guatemala and Nicaragua. This is, as I mentioned, with Rolando Masfer. There was a Bay of Pigs style thing in Haiti. There was the actual Bay of Pigs in Cuba. But as it was reported, the government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela announced Venezuela's armed forces had repelled an armed incursion. Operation Gideon was a deeply flawed coup attempt. But what would compel exiled Venezuelans and former U.S. Special Forces soldiers to join a plan that from the outset looked like a suicide mission? It's a story that leapt straight out of a 20th century playbook of Latin American conspiracies. It made the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day because the Bay of Pigs failed in 1961. It was repelled by Cuban counterintelligence and deemed to be a big disaster. Made the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day, quipped one commentator, referring to the failed U.S.-financed invasion of Fidel Castro's Cuba in 1961. Operation Gideon is a staggering tale of hubris, incompetence, and treachery. 8 men were killed by Venezuelan armed forces off the coastal town of Macuto. Dozens of others were captured and remain in jail in Caracas. Less than a handful escaped. And coinciding with the height of the coronavirus pandemic, it attracted less attention outside the Americas than it might have otherwise. At the heart of the failed mission was a former U.S. Special Forces soldier, Jordan Goudreau. And that is going to be the star of our stream.
This is my favorite dentist.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. That will be the star of our stream as the journalist Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone managed to get Jordan Goudreau for a 1-hour interview as he is facing years in prison on federal arms trafficking charges to explain the real story behind this and what really happened, which is fucking crazy. I mean, this is like, what a get by Max. So, sorry, give me a sec here. Let's get back to our, okay. But this is how it has been reported. Medic, marksman, veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, and recipient of 3 Bronze Stars medals, Goudreau was way out of his depth. A daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia, he intoned in a widely distributed video published hours after it began. So again, from Colombia, the CIA foothold over all of Latin America, Colombia. Our men are, although that's getting complicated now, our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Allow X content? Yeah. Oh, he tweeted out. Okay. Is this his audio?
Venezolanos y compañeros de la Fuerza Armada, superiores y subalternos. Hoy 3 de mayo. This raid was launched. Especiales del Ejército de los Estados Unidos.
This is Justin Goudreau.
At 1700 hours, a daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas. Our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Commander Nieto is with me, is co-located, and Commander Sakei is on the ground now fighting.
We have a weird habit in Venezuela of just saying a CIA covert action is playing out in your country. Why do we keep announcing our covert action? Why do we keep doing this? What other country do we do this in? We are in the middle of a surprise military attack on your country. A secret military operation is underway Let me live tweet my secret mission to overthrow your government. Shh, don't tell anybody, as I record a video on social media drawing out our plans. Now, of course, they're doing this in order to provide moral support to the troops on the ground, to say the U.S. has your back. But you could see how that's a double-edged sword, you know? Like here, even this, Trump telling, people, yeah, the CIA is, I've authorized covert action. That's a signal to the Venezuelan opposition forces to be braver, to have what Maria Stefan would call a higher risk tolerance, to go out and try to undertake bold action to overthrow the government, because the CIA is on the ground. We got your back. So rise up and we'll help you up. We're announcing that we're helping you up. So this is the same thing that's done in the censorship industrial complex. They try to keep everything hush hush, but they need to send out a signal to their network partners that it's safe to do this, that we're all on side together, that we'll all have your back, that it's okay to do this. Then they get caught by people like me who are like, hey, I just caught your covert action plan. Thanks for announcing your covert action plan. But this is part of the functional necessity of doing covert action at scale. When you're doing covert action like, laundering money into a bank account, only a couple people need to know. When you're doing covert action like overthrowing a government with a country with, 70 million people or whatever, like at a certain point, the cat kind of has to get at least a little bit out of the bag. All right, and let's get back to this. Okay, all right. Actually, I want to listen to a little bit more of this.
And Commander Sequeya's
por la libertad. Comandante, esta libertad número criminal, dos pioneros y entre el catado somos las habilidades por tal motivo.
Okay, no. This was not true. Some supporters in Venezuela may have been tipped off, but Operation Gideon, named after a biblical character who triumphed over a much larger army, consisted of less than 60 poorly armed men and one woman. And in reality, the operation had already descended into bloody chaos. Is that why he looks a little stressed, maybe? In 2018, Jordan Goudreau founded Silver Corp USA, a private security contractor. Its Instagram account is a mix of images of military prowess and Goudreau sprinting fast. In February 2019, he was hired, and this is in Miami. In February 2019, he was hired to provide security for a Richard Branson-sponsored gig on the Colombian side of the Venezuelan border. Richard Branson owns Virgin Airlines and is in that soup. The purpose of the concert was to pressure Nicolas Maduro into allowing humanitarian aid into Venezuela. Guys, are you catching what I'm catching? So this CIA-backed private paramilitary mercenary army started off as private security for what appears to be a CIA-backed music concert to pressure the head of state in Venezuela into allowing U.S. aid trucks packed with guns into the government's opposition. Just so you guys see what I'm talking about. U.S.-backed opposition attempted to ram several trucks loaded with boxes of U.S. aid, humanitarian aid. And I guess the big story was that the Venezuelan government destroyed the U.S. aid trucks. How funny is it, right? Like, they held a music concert to get crowds of people into the streets. This is what I'm telling you guys, all right? Dua Lipa, Bono, Pussy Riot, friggin' Taylor Swift. Like, these big music concerts, they're just like ground zero for this. I even saw this with Obama's library. I was going to do a tweet on this. Yeah, 2019 shipping of humanitarian aid. Okay. So Barack Obama, when the Obama Presidential Center opens next year, it will be a hub for change, a place for people from all over the world to come together and take what they learned back to their own communities. It's going to be a fucking CIA recruiting center from all over the world, from the Philippines, from Hungary, from Germany, from Poland, from Somalia, from Venezuela, to come together, form a cluster network, learn community organizing skills for the CIA-backed opposition movements, and take what they learned back to their own communities. It's the same shit he's doing through the Obama Foundation. And when you look at what they're advertising, what is the Obama Center going to have? Music, music. Like, look at that. Like, music, music, music. They're going to do it there too. I'm telling you guys. That's literally what's going to be. Okay. So, starts off with the Dua Lipa CIA shit in order to pressure the government to accept U.S. aid. We're off to a great start. The month before the concert in Caracas, Juan Guaido had declared himself the president of Venezuela. This is the CIA-backed opposition figure. More than 50 nations recognized him as the president, including the U.S., even though he got like 7% of the vote or something. Juan Guaido had hoped the aid envoy, championed by the Branson gig, would help sweep him to power. So the guy who lost the election, but was recognized by the U.S. as the president anyway, was hoping a U.S. aid convoy championed by a billionaire's backed music concert would sweep him to power. But the U.S. aid trucks, the 23 U.S. aid trucks, were blocked at the border. Probably because previous U.S. aid trucks have been filled with guns. And again, I'm not pro-Maduro. If he gets regime changed, I don't really care. I don't like communism. We're only looking at this through the lens of A, it's funny, B, it's relevant because there's a lot of money and a lot of stuff in the news about it. Like Trump lost the Nobel Peace Prize because, it went to someone involved in this very network. And again, I think she's probably a great person. And we're probably on sides on most things. I'm not casting any shade. This is just so that you can see how this structure looks around the world. So Guaido's supporters began to consider removing Maduro in a military operation. The first training camp was set up in the Colombian city of Macau in June. We meant getting fit, gaining knowledge, but we had economic difficulties. There was a conspiracy desperately in need of cash. Step forward, Jordan Goudreau. Back in the U.S., he had already made contact with Venezuela's opposition. On a trip to Colombia in July, Goudreau was introduced to General Cliver Alcala, the founder of the training camp, who had been close to Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, but then fell out with Maduro and went into exile. The two alpha males joined forces. Okay. Goudreau said he would arrange the finances, and further meetings were held in Miami. This time with Juan Guaido's presidential commission, a body tasked with secretly exploring ways of toppling the government. We researched around 22 regime change scenarios. Maybe a third of them involved the use of force, said J.J. Rendon, a fiercely right-wing Venezuelan, Florida-based political strategist. Here he is in Miami. We didn't talk with any other military contractors except Jordan Goudreau's Silvercorp, but we reviewed them big time. Goudreau said he had business backers, the donor drafter class, people who would, multinational businesses that would financially profit from a turnover of the Venezuelan government. people who would invest in the military operation on the understanding they would reap the economic rewards under a Guaido-led administration in Venezuela. Now this, my friends, is kind of where we're going to be spending the rest of the night tonight. This sentence is the single best way to understand George Soros. George Soros. Why do you say George Soros? This right here, business backers. Now, this is early in the coup plotting. Early on in the regime change. It's being backed, even though this is being backed by the U.S. government. It's being financed by essentially financial investors. People who would invest in the military operation on the understanding they would reap the economic rewards under a Guaido-led admin in Venezuela. When George Soros foments color revolutions, it is for this same reason. It's because the Soros Management Fund invests in portfolio companies who would reap economic rewards if a different government was in power, and created climate mandates, or bought or gave a mining license to Rio Tinto, or who restructured their debt so that a Soros currency bet would make money. This is what it's all about. It is not about ideology. Soros will back a right-wing Nazi group like the Azov Battalion against a more center-left leaning government in Yanukovych's Ukraine in 2014. And he will back a leftist government against a right-wing government, as in Brazil 2022, backing Lula over Bolsonaro. And then Lula installs these ethanol fuel mandates, forcing 200 million Brazilians to buy George Soros products in the form of the fuel companies, the clean fuel companies he had pre-invested in. A contract was signed on October 16, 2019 for an operation to capture, detain, remove Nicolas Maduro, remove the current regime, and install the recognized Venezuelan President Juan Guaido. Goudreau would get a $1.5 million retainer and later collect over $200 million. This is what the BBC reports. And this is Maduro holding up the contract. Holy shit. For those made aware of the hush-hush plan, there was elation. For years, we were just by ourselves with our own resources and no support from any political system, said Javier Nido, an exiled former captain of Venezuela's National Guard. But this time I was very excited because the plan was made with the support of men like J.J. Rendon, Juan Guaido, and his strategic team. However, within days, the bad blood surfaced. Jordan Goudreau demanded the $1.5 million retainer. The commission wanted to see evidence of the backers first. The former Special Forces soldier could not produce any, and a gathering at J.J. Rendon's Oceanside, Miami home ended badly. He became moody and disrespectful, Rendon said of Goudreau. Our last meeting was very, very uncomfortable. This is not going anywhere. I want you to leave my premises. Even so, he paid Goudreau $50,000 to cover expenses. So this is funny. So he would get a $1.5 million retainer, and the $200 million was what, a success fee if they successfully toppled the government? It's a big difference. 1.5 million retainer, 200 million success fee if you really overthrow the government. Because every country has these people. When we overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014, there was a Jordan Goudreau on the ground in the right sector. When we toppled the government of Bangladesh in 2024, there's multiple of these figures who are these intermediaries between the business backers, the government agencies, and the on-the-ground paramilitaries. Okay, so yada yada. They go through with this mission anyway, and that's kind of, I think, all we need for this. But the mission failed, And then when it failed, the U.S. government threw Goudreau under the bus, as they often do. Saying we didn't authorize this, yada yada. So with that, let's play Max's video. I'm going to do the no ads version, but let me just read his description of it. Facing years in prison on federal arms trafficking charges, former U.S. Green Beret and mercenary Jordan Goudreau presents his side of the story in this explosive tell-all. Lampooned in the media for his failed Bay of Piglets plot, Goudreau insists he was the scapegoat for a clandestine Operation Gideon, well known to and blessed by the highest levels of the U.S. government. Goudreau details previously unseen court documents and FBI files containing testimony of those involved in the plan to invade Venezuela and overthrow the president. The files include FBI interviews with participants in the plot, which demonstrate foreknowledge of the plot by Trump associates, leaders of the Colombian government, CIA assets, and officials working directly under Mike Pence and Donald Trump, strongly suggesting their support for it. This interview provides a revealing backdrop for the latest phase of those. Okay, right. Okay, all right. Now, all right. And again, this is a left-wing. Max Blumenthal presents like a very, like...
Welcome to the Gray Zone. It's Max.
Presents like a very, progressive, anti-imperialist, left-wing view of the world. I respect him as a journalist, even though we come from very different frameworks for understanding the world. But I'm not endorsing the particular frames like the, kind of left-wing anti-imperialist like subframe in it. Just FYI, where we're listening for the, for the substance of what Jordan Goudreau has to say. That's the key purpose of this. So let's click play. Are you guys strapped in? This is gonna be fun.
Blumenthal. Earlier today, I spoke to former U.S. Green Beret and mercenary Jordan Goudreau, who led the failed Operation Gideon plot to invade Venezuela in 2020 by sea and topple the government of Nicolas Maduro. It was a famously bungled operation that is mockingly referred to as the Bay of Piglets. And if you've been following our coverage at the Gray Zone for the past few years, especially our coverage of Venezuela, then you're very well familiar with the details of it. Jordan Goudreau is treated as almost a laughingstock in U.S. media. But as I've recently learned, there's a lot more to the story. Goudreau is currently facing federal arms trafficking charges for transferring arms over the Colombian border. And he's now come forward to tell me in the Gray Zone his side of the story. He's provided us with extremely valuable court documents and FBI files containing details of those who were involved in the covert 2020 Operation Gideon plot to topple the government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. These documents provide details of the Venezuelan coup plan that the public has never seen before.
So I want to pause for a second because I kind of want to drop a diagram as we go through this, because this story really has it all. I mean, like Florida International University, by the way, I flew into Dulles Airport from Miami as I was doing my last leg of the move. And the first thing I see when I get off at Dulles Airport here in D.C. is an advertisement for Florida International University, where Juan Guaido went from the CIA into academia, as they so commonly do, right? Juan Guaido is now Professor Guaido, just like they all do, right? You either, when you're CIA or you're a high-level asset or operative, you basically have three paths, which are, you either go into banking, where you are a macroeconomic forecaster, effectively, like Jared Cohen or Mark Milley or Tom Donilon. You go into the think tank world, where you just get a cushy sinecure for you being you and just hooking people up with your list of contacts. Or you go into academia at a institute or center. This is the Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom, where you don't even need to teach classes, really. You just kind of get a salary. You're kept cold on ice, effectively, while your government is out of power. You get washed as an academic. But I saw actually advertisements for this exact thing, like Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom. Was it the Dulles Airport or ads? Maybe it was Reagan Airport, DCA Reagan Airport. I took a bunch of these like on my phone, but it was like these ads were everywhere. Like there was more in DC for the sort of CIA, right-wing CIA center in Miami than are ads in Miami. I think that's very telling. I wanted to diagram a little bit of this out because this story, what spirals into this sprawling CIA operation to overthrow the most oil-rich nation on planet Earth, started off with a music concert to promote U.S. aid. I just think that's very funny. So what I want to try to do is 2019 Richard Branson Caracas concert. I just want to see if I can find like YouTube videos of this. Venezuela aid.
Fonseca, I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Concierto Venezuela aid. Oh my God. It was just like Bono Live Aid Band-Aid. It was called Venezuela aid.
Much for doing a wonderful performance, but then coming and joining my band on stage and playing Imagine. It was magical, and hopefully we'll meet up again someday. You came a long way, you gave up a lot of time, and really appreciate it. Until next time, I'll go and practice my singing voice.
Oh my God. Venezuela aid.
We need to try to help
Richard Branson speaks about Venezuela aid concert.
those who are not getting medical help.
Venezuela aid live organizer. God.
Help those who are hungry. And today, hopefully, on the back of this concert, we can start maybe getting supplies into Venezuela so that people are not suffering so much. If we can raise further funds, we'd like to try to put those funds towards keeping doctors in Venezuela, keeping nurses in Venezuela, because at the moment, most of the doctors and most of the nurses have left Venezuela, and we need them to go back. I then saw an interview with Juan Guaido, who was asking for the world to help, and I decided to pick up the phone and speak with him and see what we could do to help. And that was 3 weeks ago with Bruno on the phone as well. And he said he felt a wonderful concert, wonderful free concert on the border to illustrate, through music, the importance of letting relief into the country would be wonderful. So the last 3 weeks, this team here and a few of our people as well have worked to pull this together, and it looks like we're going to have the exact event that we were all hoping for 3 weeks ago. Every country, every people in the world want freedom. They want fair elections, and Venezuela should be no different.
Well, you kind of mix the messages there, right? This is about aid to hungry people. This is about elections, actually. Which one do you want to help starving people, or do you want to overthrow the government? Which one? You probably shouldn't put those in the same speech, right? Right? Who performed here? Who do they get?
Hola amigos from Venezuela, from Colombia, and from around the world. Venezuela is suffering, and not that long ago it was the wealthiest country in South America. Now it is facing the worst humanitarian crisis in the Western Hemisphere. Over 3 million Venezuelans have been displaced in the region, and a number that is growing by literally thousands every day.
It's like a CIA hostage video. Guys, am I fucking right? You know, when I did this video like 2 years ago at Art Basel in Miami, do you guys remember this video I did, CIA music? God, I've done a lot of videos on CIA and the music industry. Okay, remember this video? Why the CIA and State Department love large outdoor art festivals and music festivals when preparing a regime change. I mean, fuck. Look, my goal is to do what Trump. You know how Trump, there's a Trump tweet for everything. Did I friggin' call this? They're preparing a regime change in Venezuela, so they have a large outdoor music festival on the border of Venezuela to pressure them to open the borders to let 23 U.S. aid trucks in, filled with guns and unmarked cash. This is before they switched to crypto money laundering.
Gatherings in regime, so it's too loud for like a proper walk and talk. But I want to talk about the role of large gatherings in regime change operations, okay? One of the reasons that the State Department and the Central Intelligence Agency were such big fans of throwing concerts and mass events in Germany and in Italy and in other places during the Cold War was that getting people into a giant venue on the street somewhere, 100 or a couple 100,000 people all together, music cuts through differences. See, they have a big problem when it comes to creating a regime change sentiment because often the coalitions together hate each other. So they developed a technique that they sort of started to call Get Him Out, which is to unify not around what people have in common, but to unify around what they all hate. And so the nice thing about music is you don't even need to have a common message. As long as you're sort of all aligned like a magnet together, and it gets you used to being in the streets. And now if you have a Western musician, that automatically separates you from the Eastern music of both China and Russia and other places.
This is what they're doing in the Cold War I was talking about there.
So it automatically creates this cultural cleavage point to draw people towards a Euro-Atlantic axis. If they're listening to Taylor Swift or if they're listening to Moby, they're not listening to Russian music. They're not listening to Chinese music. They're not listening to Cuban music. Although the CIA has...
Again, then I went into the Cuba stuff. But the point is they love this stuff. They love, I mean, I didn't even know about Venezuela Aid until 5 friggin' minutes ago, and now I need to know everything about it. Who performed at Venezuela Aid? Was it all local people or Venezuela Aid concert 2019? I gotta know. Venezuela Aid Live. God damn, they literally ran the friggin' Bono CIA Somalia playbook. Organized by Richard Branson with Bruno Ocampo. This is going to be some weird scenes inside the canyon. 300,000 people on the Venezuelan border. The all-day concert called Música por Venezuela, Aid and Freedom. Bruno Ocampo. I wonder who that guy is. Featured over 30 of the best-known Latin American artists. So again, okay, who are these? What was the lineup? Do I know any of these people? It'd be funny if Bad Bunny, I know this is like before Bad Bunny rose up the charts, but they're hoping to raise $100 million. Hey, that's the same amount the Bono. Bono, BBC, Band Aid, Live Aid, 100 million guns. Remember we found all these from the BBC, Band Aid and how the rebels bought their arms. Let's see, it was 100 million, right? The Irish singer Bono raised $100 million through Band Aid, a supergroup of British pop stars that set the mold for charity, and Live Aid, which did the same for worldwide charity concerts. The money was to help alleviate the devastating Ethiopian famine of 1984 and 1985, but it was actually, according to the BBC, used to help the CIA-backed rebel groups buy arms to win their side of a CIA-backed civil war. Great. Dozens of the most noted Latin American artists will take part in this concert of solidarity with Venezuela and demand that Nicolas Maduro allow the entry of humanitarian aid, U.S. aid trucks that have been gathering at the border. So these U.S. aid trucks are like swarming around the border of the country like piranhas. Let us in. We have all our guns in the trucks. Let us in so that we can arm your people to shoot you in the face. And again, listen, I don't like Maduro, but you got to admit this is fucking funny. Because you have to wonder about the whole music industry at a certain point. Music is a fugazi. It is very capricious how people get selected to get put on. It's not always like the best musical artist wins. You get put on by your agent and your manager and your record label and the distribution. There's a lot of just subjective, this label's going to put you on. You're going to get this distribution, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of these squishy middlemen in the music world. Do you think, for example, if you were to be like a musician that were to call for Ukraine to agree to Trump's terms on the Russia deal, you are probably never going to be nominated for a Grammy in your life. If you're a musician who spoke out against the COVID vaccine, you're never going to get a Grammy. You're never going to get a VMA. 20 from Linda. Let me, she's got a link. Linda W. PhD, thank you. Sovereignty's sonic limits. Music and spectacle at the border. Voluminous space, radical imagination, performance protest. Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Resistance across borders. This is from 2025. Yeah. Border spectacle. Oh my God. Well, that's what this is. That's quite literally what this is. Very interesting. Rival concerts as Venezuela power struggle intensifies. Oh no, did Maduro do a counter concert? Did Venezuela say two can play CIA? Oh my God, are they going to get Bad Bunny against John Rich? What's going on here? Rival concerts became the backdrop of the showdown. This is from 2019, February 2019, exactly when Jordan Goudreau gets a start. Between Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and opposition leader and self-declared President Juan Guaido on Friday as the opposition prepared to bring aid across the Venezuelan border. A move Maduro vowed to block. Billionaire another Sir, Richard Branson was knighted just like Bono. This is probably about Royal Dutch Shell and British Petroleum's interests in Venezuela. Wait a second. Wait just a second. Estimate how much money Shell and British Petroleum would profit from a U.S.-backed. Estimate how much money the British energy giants Shell and would each respectively profit from a regime change in Venezuela and the installation of a different head of state in Venezuela with politics like Juan Guaido. Respectively make the profit timeline 10 years and estimate a total profit over 10 years from Juan Guaido or a similar US, UK backed head of state in charge of Venezuela. All right, we're going to let that run. But I bet you that's why the Brits, because this is going to be a shell. This is going to be just like the this UN. Oh, that's the other thing we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do the UN climate tax. I found some super interesting stuff on that. So the Brits, probably Shell and British Petroleum, BP, while Maduro's government kicked off a 3-day music festival on the other side of the border. Son of a bitch! They're learning. They're adapting to the tactics. Can you believe that? Maduro kicked off a 3-day music festival on the other side of the border. That's why the regime change failed. Food and medicine. This is exactly what Bono argued on Joe Rogan when we got USAID shut down. Oh, it's the food and medicine, food and medicine. Really? So why do you use the word elections? Why is Chemonics running the logistics? I think we can persuade the soldiers to open the bridge if we can just get enough big booty Latinas shaking their ass. That's the ideal outcome. Open the bridge. This is like the ultimate Trojan horse. If we just play sweet, sweet music, will you let our Trojan horse USAID vans in? Just 300 meters away. Just 300 meters away. They can probably fucking hear each other. Are you kidding me? Just 300 meters away, 150 artists will be performing for Maduro's Hands Off Venezuela Festival. Are you fucking, this has got to be a movie. Intelligence plots a fucking big booty Latina concert on one side of the border. Counterintelligence plots a Hands Off My Country anti-USAID music festival on the other side of the border. This is fucking crazy. Did any of you guys know about this? 300 meters away? You can hear that shit. That's a fifth of a mile. They could they could hear each other. A pro-USAID and anti-USAID spy versus spy dueling music concerts. That's incredible. We have to know the musical tug of war is part of a power struggle between Maduro and the U.S.-backed Guaido. This is the most. I've never heard of a story that more perfectly defines my soul. Like literally, like this is everything. I literally did a 3-hour. Did you guys watch my this interview that I did less than a week ago? The first entire hour of it is just CIA and the music industry stuff. Music diplomacy, Dua Lipa, Bono, Taylor Swift, and then into the NATO stuff. But you wonder why I talk about it, because that's literally the start of this entire Bay of Pigs operation, was because Jordan Goudreau, the special forces guy, was providing security for the CIA MI6-backed music concert to let USAID trucks filled with guns and cash into a country they're trying to pry open. Do you see the levels of it? The structure? All right. Let's see. So here's what I asked ChatGPT. Estimate how much money the British energy giants Shell and British Petroleum would each respectively profit from a regime change in Venezuela. The Shell Dragon Field. Shell received a 30-year operating license from Venezuela in 2023. Are you fucking kidding me? 2 years ago, Shell, the London oil and gas and energy giant, received a 30-year operating license from Venezuela. Gas would feed the Atlantic LNG in Trinidad, where Shell and BP each now hold 45 to 47% of the gas. This is why British Sir Richard Branson, fucking British billionaire quasi-spies working with USAID, BP received a Venezuelan Cochiana license, upstream oil reentry. A Guaido-like framework specifically contemplated majority private stakes and direct exports. This is a policy hinge that enables big cap Western reentry beyond Chevron's car. Venezuela would still need $50 to $60 billion of reinvestment to gain late 1990s capacity. Key inputs, okay. These are just the assumptions. Margins. Step through math, okay. Boom, 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 boom. 100 million a year, 14 million a year. Boom, 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 boom. Profits per barrel, but 10 billion. 10-year profit tallies, okay. All right. So we're talking like $2 billion Shell would make and like $1.5 billion BP would make. For 100 million in USAID money, a $2 billion profit. Maybe $3 billion Not bad. Not bad. I'll take $3 billion, please. $5 billion if you add them up. Just for winning an election. What a difference an election makes. In one country, one election, 3 billion, 2 billion. Oh yeah, I wanted to look at the music artists. I think they had them here. Who's taking part in the 2019 concert? El Puma, El Cholo, Paulina Rubio, Carlos Bott, Nacho, members of the famous, now defunct, okay. Rapping event will be Ricardo Montaner. Do I know any of these guys? One is. All MCs will be Venezuelan. Lele Pons? The Vine star? No way. Lele Pons from like 2014 Vine? 18 million subscribers on YouTube? She's taking place in a CIA MI6 music concert? Lele Pons Vines. Do you guys remember Lele Pons? Boy, she was really put on. I remember being like, wow. Because she was like in like, she was in like the YouTube rewinds and all this. And everyone was like, who is this person? Why is she being so hyper promoted? Was she in YouTube Rewind? I feel like she was. YouTube Rewind? Is that what it was? Second YouTuber. Yeah, second YouTube. So YouTube Rewind 2017. You guys remember this? Yo, Rewind. Remember when they left out PewDiePie from YouTube Rewind? Even though PewDiePie was the biggest YouTube star on the platform 6 years ago?
Yeah, it's rewind time. You know, if I control rewind, I would want Fortnite and Marquez Brownlee.
But YouTube Rewind was a big moment of revolt in the YouTube community because they put, you know, that was a big like year-end recap of YouTube's biggest content creators. But they didn't have YouTube's biggest content creators. They only had some of them. They would take out like PewDiePie and like anyone who was based, even if they were bigger than the other people. And Lele Pons, evidently, I remember this because I remember this is a big thing because 2017 was year one of the Trump admin. And this was right at the beginning of the censorship era. Let's see, YouTube Rewind 2017, 243 million views. Wait, this is her. She's right in the center. The CIA, British intelligence, MC. YouTube, PewDiePie had like 300 million subscribers. And he wasn't in that shit, but Lele Pons was?
Welcome back to YouTube Rewind. We've got two special guests with us. Okay, Lele and Liza, tell me about 2017.
What? She's the MC of YouTube Rewind in 2017? And then she's the MC of the CIA MI6 operation to overthrow the government of Venezuela in 2019? Fuck! With Colbert?
We've got two special guests with us. Okay, Lele and Liza, tell me about 2017.
Oh no. Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito. Deja que te diga cosas al oído, para que te acuerdes si no estás conmigo. Sube, sube. Quiero ver bailar tu pelo, quiero ser tu ritmo.
They've even got the Latin music. They're gonna be playing this on the Venezuelan border. And Maduro's gonna have like counter reggaeton.
Que le enseñes a mi boca tus lugares favoritos. Pasito a pasito, suave suavecito, nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito. Nobody pray for me. It been a day for me. Yeah, yeah.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Yeah. And brand new. And I'm singing like your love was handmade for somebody like me. Maybe crazy, don't mind me. Say, come now, fall in love with your body. Come now, fall in love. Come now, fall in love with the shape of you. Come now, fall in love. I'm in love with your body. Be my baby, come on. Be my baby, come on. Be my baby. I love it.
Anyway, this was like a big political event in the YouTube community because to be featured in this was to be chosen by the system to be in the YouTube content, the partners program and super monetized and Google ads and making millions of dollars. And it was supposed to be because these were the biggest creators on the platform, but they weren't. And we were like, fuck. YouTube is a part of the system. 20 from Leo Fon 70. No rant, just donate. Thank you. Thank you, sir. But that's so crazy. Lele Pons. I bet you if we dig into these artists, like who would you say is like the key? Okay. Let's see. Reynaldo Armas El Cholo. Do you think this guy was working with USAID? Or, I mean, it's probably not going to come off of Google search, but I bet you we can find celebrity regime change. I bet you if we were to go to like the music diplomacy, it's gonna be tough to do on the spot, but I bet you like something like Freedom Beat. If we were like to go into like Freedom Beat and look at like the network of like artists and musicians, like let's see, do they have a search? Explore Venezuela. Music and nonviolent resistance in a polarized country. 2014, Universidad Central de Venezuela. Okay, that's probably a USAID funded university there. Music led to protests. Wow, what a surprise. Medicine, food. In December 2013, the candidate for the Chavistic Party, Nicolas Maduro, had technically won the election. So in 2013, we lose the election. 2014, the music appears on the CIA's freedombeat.org, organizing riots and protests using music in the streets. Oh my God. In February 2014, just 2 months after the election, nonviolent protests were promoted by the student movement, supported by a number of opposition leaders who stood against Maduro. The campaign received the name The Way Out. Remember how I said it's always called Get Him Out, or like out. I literally said that in this fucking, because I just pulled this up. You watched me pull this up.
Because often the coalitions together hate each other. So they developed a technique that they sort of started to call Get Him Out.
Get him out. It's always some variation of get him out. And they call this one The Way Out. It's the same thing every freaking time. Roadblocks were a common tactic. That's how you know it's USAID. Remember, the U.S. Institute of Peace literally advocates roadblocks for their nonviolent. Freedom Beat is an affiliate of the U.S. Institute of Peace. And we read their guidebook where they mentioned 10 times the importance of blocking roads and trains and critical city intersections.
Third category of nonviolent tactics is nonviolent intervention. These include such actions as sit-ins, blocking roads, overloading facilities, establishing parallel or alternative institutions, occupying buildings, and acts of civil disobedience, and even deliberately seeking imprisonment.
This is the U.S. government advocating people block roads, just like you saw in the ICE riots that she was doing. Overload facilities, occupy buildings. What followed was a combination of both nonviolent and violent protests that faced repression by the National Guard and state police. A combination of nonviolent and violent. You know what we call that? We call that violent. Mostly peaceful. Other buildings are on fire. Yeah, we attacked police officers, but we faced repression when they attacked back. This is such bullshit. Two months after the election goes the wrong way in the eyes of the CIA, and you already have Freedom Beat USAID musicians leading groups of unemployed people and young students in violent protests. And then 5 years later, you have the musicians back to argue for more USAID. Anyway, what I'm saying is I think it would be a fun project if you were to scope, because for example, for something like the San Isidro movement in Cuba, the CIA-backed hip-hop artists had a huge trail of working with USAID, the National Endowment for Democracy, the State Department, Western Hemisphere folks. I bet you there's something similar going on in the background with these guys. Let's see, Franco DeVito. He's the guy who's closing it. Let's see. Oh, and look at that. The Billboard Latin Music Awards. This is how you make it. If you want to win an award, this is how you do it. The Latin Grammys. Franco DeVito. Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. All right, I'd have to look deep into this. Let's not get too derailed. Let's get back to our main video. There it is. Okay.
They include FBI interviews with participants which demonstrate foreknowledge, or at least suggest foreknowledge of the plot by Trump associates, leaders of the government of Colombia, CIA assets, and officials working directly under Vice President Mike Pence and Donald Trump, and strongly suggest their support for it. And in this interview, Goudreau names these officials and also details potential CIA support for the plot. Jordan Goudreau, former Green Beret.
Shakira and USAID? Really? Is that true? You guys going to drive me crazy with the Shakira USAID? Colombian singer. Oh, because she's Colombian. Oh, shit. Shakira's Colombian. Shakira. Colombian. She's Colombian. Fuck. Because that's how they got Dua Lipa, because of the Kosovo Serbia stuff. So Shakira has a foundation. No. Shakira.
Ladies up in here tonight. No fighting. We got the refugees. No fighting. Shakira. I never really knew that she could dance like this. She make a man wanna speak Spanish. Como se llama? Bonita. Shakira.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. So be wise and keep on reading the signs of my body. I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it's right. All the attraction, the tension. Don't you see, baby, this is perfection.
Hey, girl, I can see your body moving, and it's driving me crazy. And I didn't have the slightest idea until I saw you dancing. And when you walk up on the dance floor, nobody can ignore the way you move your body, girl. And everything's so unexpected, the way you right and left it. So you can keep on shaking it. Never really knew that she could dance like this. She make a man wanna speak Spanish. Como se llama? Bonita. Shakira.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. So be wise and keep on reading the signs of my body. I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel you, boy. And then let's go real slow. Don't you see, baby, see it's perfect. I know I'm on tonight, my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it's right. All all the attraction, the tension. Don't you see, baby, this is perfection. Oh boy, I can see your body moving, half animal, half man. I don't really know what I'm doing, but just seem to have a plan. My will, self-restraint, have come to fail now, fail now. See, I'm doing what I can, but I can't, so you know that's too hard to explain.
¿Cómo se llama? Bonita, picante. Shakira, Shakira.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you know you got me hypnotized. So be wise and keep on beating the size of my body.
Señorita, feel the conga. Let me see you move like you come from Colombia.
Mira, en Barranquilla se baila así.
En Barranquilla se baila así. Yeah, she's so sexy, I am in fantasy. A refugee like me back with the Fugees from a third world country. I go back like when Pac carried crates for Humpty Hump. We lead a whole club dizzy. Why the CIA wanna watch the Colombians and Haitians? I ain't guilty, it's a musical transaction. Bobo, zobo, no more do we snatch rope. Refugees run the seas cause we own our own boat.
I'm on tonight, my hips don't lie, and I'm stuck.
Refugees run the seas because we own our own boats? Colombia and Haiti? I didn't even know what that verse was about until I realized Shakira is part of a USAID program for war refugees and civil war refugees from Colombia and Haiti. Holy shit, all these CIA-backed mercenary groups sending remittances back to their CIA networks in Haiti and Colombia are doing it through the friggin' Shakira Foundation. God damn. God damn. Only a pawn in the game. Shakira announces $40 million in aid for Latin America. Peru and Nicaragua. Hips don't lie. Summit for global climate change and development organized by Bill fucking Clinton. $40 million for USAID programs in the capital of cocaine harvesting in the world, Peru, and the site of Iran-Contra, Nicaragua. Ah! Honored by the UN. Ah. Oh, God. Oh, God. Ah. All right. That's enough for today. Let's get back.
Beret and the face of Operation Gideon, which began as Operation Edgemont. Welcome to the Gray Zone.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it.